Hi. So I did a recent interview with Kendrick a couple months ago, and it was sort of an update about social type, also just how the OPS journey has been. I was typed in early 2020, so I've been sitting with it for a while. My social type, by the way, I believe to be 3. I don't see how it could be anything else, but it's not like super official. So I don't know, maybe I'll submit for official. In the interview, Kendrick asked me how I've worked on play over the last few years and like how I'm sort of settled or not settled about play. And I feel like I didn't really give a very thorough answer. And it's partially because it just isn't much of a problem. Or like when those play last tensions come up, I just sort of notice it and decide from there. So it's not really a big deal. I don't have massive play last tidal waves. I don't know that I ever have had really massive tidal waves. It's just these little discomforts that I've sort of learned to live with and navigate. So when he asked me that question, it was kind of difficult to answer because to me it doesn't really feel like a problem. Now that could be delusional. A lot of times with your last animal, you can't even see it and you don't see what the problem is, you don't see what the big deal is. Or it could be that I'm 47 and I've figured some stuff out. For example, even before I came across OPS, I was staring at my play last. I just didn't have the jargon for it. I wasn't labeling it play last or calling it play last, but I was still aware of this weird dynamic. You know, when you live a lot of years and you go through a lot of challenges, you figure stuff out. When I came to OPS, like, yeah, the play last is this tension within me, but I also know how to live with it, how to game it. You know, since discovering OPS and having that really clear label for it, I think I've improved it even further. But Kendrick's question caught me off guard because it just isn't really a big deal. So I feel like I have pushed myself in terms of play moderately. I haven't pushed myself too hard because I don't think that's necessary. I think that OPS can really get into your head and you can think, oh, I have to do my last animal every day, every minute, all the time. That's just not my approach. I've always been on this growth journey that's like pushing myself a little bit and then, you know, relaxing and integrating, pushing myself a little bit more. I'm just not in a hurry to push myself to any extreme. You know, I'm not David Goggins. I'm not an extreme person. So I have worked on it over the years and pushed myself outside of my comfort zone little by little, but not too much. And that's just my style. Maybe that's not good enough or growthy enough. I don't know. That's just how I do it. And then there's also these places where I have hard limits. And I think people have that with their last animal. It's like you can push yourself, you can grow, but in some places there's a super hard limit and it's just a boundary. I will do this and this and this to push past my last animal, but there's this hard line right here that I will not do this. And I think that's okay. I don't think the goal in this growth is to become a different type. You're still gonna be your type and who you are. And that's the hand of cards that you've been dealt. And, you know, you can play them the best you can, but it's always gonna be that hand of cards. And I think before the social types came out, I was really sort of lumping the friends coin in with play. But here I want to talk about just pure play, just that animal, aside from the friends coin. Because I think that play in its purest form it doesn't really have so much to do with how friends oriented you are, although there is probably like a correlation there. So I see play as like an easy back and forth in conversation. I see it as being flexible in the moment with random chaos from the tribe. I see it as collaborating, playing with the tribe to achieve a goal or solve a problem. And I also see it as being energetically extroverted in public places. Energetically, your energy is going out when you're interacting with other people instead of being sort of consume, sleep, locked inside yourself, unapproachable, energetically inside yourself rather than energetically available to the people that you're present with. So first, in terms of the conversation back and forth, I don't even think of that as being a problem. I might not be as good at conversation as a lot of people, but I think I'm pretty good at it and I do it all the time. And I also find it enjoyable. So this comes up a lot in my massage therapy practice. I'm exposed to a lot of different people on a weekly basis, all kinds of people with different backgrounds, and I have excellent conversations with them. And I feel like there's a good back and forth. And I think having really high consume and having NE is part of that simply because I am so curious. There's someone that's in my office, they have a completely different perspective, and I'm super, super curious about what their experience is. And I'm also really good at deeply listening because of the consume. I want it. I want the information. I want to hear what they have to say. That's really useful in conversation. But then what has improved over time throughout my life is getting a little bit more eloquent at when I interject. I'm listening. When is it appropriate to speak and what is it appropriate to speak about? I feel like I'm pretty good at that, at least average. The other one that is fairly easy for me, although it does take a conscious effort, is being energetically available to the people around me, extroverting my energy outward rather than walking around like a sleep zombie, unapproachable, locked inside of myself, stuck in this deep inner world. I am in consume sleep a lot most of the time, but what I've learned to do is consciously make an effort when I'm in a public place to not do that. So for example, going to the grocery store, I kind of have to consciously psych myself up for it. And I just remind myself, we're going into a public space now, not appropriate to walk around like a sleep zombie. Be aware, be present, be available. These are the people in your neighborhood. Go into the grocery store and be energetically available to them. I feel like the grocery store is one of the easiest places for me to do it because I am in tea play. And so I'm sort of looking at the people around me, seeing how they're moving and anticipating their needs and being helpful because it is TE play. So for example, if I see a little old lady that can't reach something, I notice that and I reach it for her. I don't know if that's in tea play, but like that's all I got in terms of like interacting and helping the tribe. Or, you see someone grab some pasta from the shelf. You might conclude that because they just grabbed pasta, they might be going to the spaghetti sauce next. I'm aware like in my movements, like, oh, he just got this. He's probably going over here. So why don't I make sure that I steer out of his way? I don't know. Maybe that's just like how I'm weird about ST because in the grocery store, I'm super aware of like keeping my cart out of the way, not parking it diagonally across the aisle so people can't get past. It's this TE, like, how can I make this experience more efficient and convenient for everyone around me? But it's also this feeling of maybe vibing with the people in my neighborhood. I've gone to the same grocery store roughly at the same time, often on the same day of week for 15 years. And so I have the same checker every time. Her name's Nadine. She's lovely. And, we share and we talk. We just have these little casual, friendly conversations. And I see a lot of other people that I know at the grocery store. I'm also a massage therapist, so I see clients at the grocery store. And so it's important that when I go in there, I don't just look like absent and weird. I'm just friendly and energetically available. I remind myself to do this when clients come into my office. It's just about being super present and available when I'm interacting with other people. So recently I joined the YMCA. We got a brand new YMCA that's just like blocks away from my house. It's super convenient. And I joined it not necessarily because of exercise, because I can exercise on my own. I'm pretty like solid in my routines and find ways to exercise by myself with minimal equipment. But I decided to join the YMCA because of the possibility of practicing play every time I'm in there, because I see people from my neighborhood. It feels good to see regulars and to be a regular. And it's another place where I remind myself, we're going into a public place now. Look around, be present, make eye contact. And I think that TE comes into play a lot there because of the time of day that I go there. There's a lot of older people, and this is a brand new facility with like high-tech machines, and they all have like a different touchscreen interface than what the old YMCA had. There are some people who are like, I don't know how to use this. They're struggling to figure out how to use the machines. And I just noticed that. I'll say, oh, hey, you got to push this button here. And then if you do this, then it gets going, and you can do it on manual, or you can select program or whatever. And I just kind of help out the people that are struggling. The only way that I can do that is because I'm aware of people around me. So the other thing I mentioned was collaborating. And this one I do, and I push myself to do it, but I have a low tolerance. I have limits to how many collaborations I am able to take on just because my play energy is limited. And I think that's okay. I don't think that I need to sign myself up to be on a lot of team projects and push myself beyond my comfort zone, because anytime you do one thing, then you can't do other things. So if I was always on team projects all the time, then I would automatically have less time to work on solo projects. projects, which I really enjoy. So I'm on a cognitive resolution group team, and that's been amazing. We're all professional, we're on task, we're efficient, we show up. There's not people that totally forget about the meetings and don't show. That's one thing that I really need and appreciate in collaborations, because part of my fear in joining collaborations is that I'm going to have to work with flaky people. And that's really the demon ST, really uptight about time. Time is solid, and kind of uptight about efficiency. I've done collaborations in the past where I was timid about collaborating because of the low play and because of being weird about ST. And then it got complicated. People were flaky, things went wrong, and then it felt like I was getting burned. And anytime you do your last animal and you get burned, it just hurts. It hurts. And it makes you not want to do it again. But this has been an amazing experience on the CRG team. Everybody's super professional, and it's been really wonderful. So I have one other collaboration going right now, and that is it's a little complicated. And it's just because that person has much higher play than me. So we talked about doing this one thing together, and then every time we get together, she has another brilliant idea. Like, oh wow, why don't we meet up and do this other side project and this other thing and this other thing? And I just can't. You could say, well, that's play last. You need to push yourself beyond that. You need to say yes to everything, but that's just not going to happen. I'm not going to say yes to everything. I'm doing some collaborations, and then I'm drawing the line, and that's it. These are my collaborations, and I'll be as graceful as possible with these. But I'm not going to pile on more and more and more just for the sake of doing this last animal because Dave and Shan told me to. OPS can really get in your head, and every time you don't want to do something or you're resistant to doing something, you think oh, well, that's just my last animal, or it's because I have XYZ last. I need to do it because I don't want to do it. What would Dave and Shan say? And I mean, it just comes back to this idea that I think that you have to learn how to push yourself a little and then rest a little. So I'm not going to say yes to every collaboration. There's this idea of the year of yes. I think there's some book called The Year of Yes, and it was something like not saying no and saying yes to every opportunity that comes up in a year. And that to me sounds terrifying. And it's probably because of play being last. It makes me feel like it comes up against real legitimate boundaries. There's a time when pushing past those play limitations is appropriate. And then there's also real legitimate boundaries that are totally reasonable, that are okay. There are times when it is okay to say no. So I'm afraid of collaborations, and I know it's a play last thing, but I'm still doing them. And that's the best I can do. So I think one of the hardest aspects of play for me is dealing with random, unexpected chaos in the moment. And I do have to deal with it all the time because I have an appointment-based business and things are always in flux. People are gonna not show up. They're gonna be 20 minutes late. There's gonna be last-minute cancellations, last-minute appointment changes. Things are gonna come up in the day that you don't expect. And I feel fairly accepting of that because I'm an adult, grown-up person. I understand that unexpected things happen every day, but I don't invite unexpected things. There are some people where they feel really excited by the idea of just waking up every day and having no idea what they're going to do for the day. Like, what will I do today? Anything could happen. And I'm not comfortable with that. And I also just don't invite chaos into my life. So there is some ST and some systems and some planning so that I'm sort of aiming for this today, but I understand that within aiming for this, some random stuff's going to come up and I'll deal with it as gracefully as possible. But I'm still always going to have this planning to at least try to aim for where I'm aiming at. You could say that I'm planning too much. Well, I don't know. Because a person who has no planning at all, you would look at them and say you need to plan. I sort of feel like I'm aiming for somewhere in the middle. And again, maybe it's delusional. Am I getting a passing grade? Or am I just making excuses to protect this play last? I don't know. So I think that you really have to be honest with yourself and evaluate yourself. Am I getting a passing grade on my play last? Am I getting a C? Am I getting a B? I don't know. I just know that I am doing it the best I can, and I don't have massive tidal waves because of it. So maybe I'm doing okay. So I don't know. Does that make sense? Do y'all think I'm crazy? Do I sound delusional? Full of shit? Play last idiot? I don't know. That's just my assessment of where I'm at with play last.